Welcome back to Investing in Milwaukee. We just wrapped up a really great interview with one of our clients, James Brewer. He stopped by in town here to check on his apartment building that he bought with us a year and a half ago. He is a very interesting guy, originally from Chicago, but moved to California, so he's an out-of-state investor. And he took on a project that was nothing for the faint of heart. He's an ex-Marine, maybe that has something to do with it. Really tough guy. So it wasn't only the building that needed a lot of work. In the apartment world, we called it repositioning. You could also call it a multifamily burr. So there was a lot of work that had to be done, a ton of interesting insights from James here on what happened and what he had to do. I don't think he is giving himself enough credit. He's a very humble guy. But he was completely unfazed by the things that he had to do. Quite some challenges. I asked him if he was worried about it, and he's like, no, it's just a problem to solve. And solving he did. I've seen the numbers, and he did very, very well. It was a lot of work, so well deserved, but fascinating story. Let's get into it. Thank you for visiting us in Milwaukee. We haven't seen you in a while.
So yeah, absolutely.
It's great to have you here. And we wanted to talk with you a little bit about the deal that you did in Milwaukee. I think it's more than a year now since you've purchased the property, right?
Yeah, it's been about 18 months, I think. So it's been going great.
Can you tell us a little bit, how did you get into real estate investing? How did you get into Milwaukee?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started out in real estate because I had some friends, some other Marines. I'm a Marine. I've been a Marine for about 20 years, but I reached out to some other Marines and they really showed me the way into commercial real estate. So I started out on BiggerPockets initially, and I started looking in the Milwaukee area, and I found you, Marcus, and that was really awesome. And you said, yeah, happy to help. Let me put you in touch with Spencer. It's going to be awesome, and we can really help you here.
Yeah, I think you started at like 8 to 12 units, right?
Yeah,
so, like that was the parameter, and you're like, what do you think of this? I was like, that's a big jump. But,
exactly.
It is. That's actually a really pretty bold move, because most people will actually start out with a 2-family or a 4-family and then slowly graduate bigger.
Yeah.
Where was the point where you decided I'm going to go for a bigger property?
Well, I have a friend in commercial real estate, and he said he had, when he started out, he had a 5-unit property. He said, man, all the work that I did for my 5-unit, which made it commercial, I might as well have a 50-unit. Mm. And so that changed my mindset a lot. Mm-hmm. That helped me to believe that I could get in. I didn't have to start at a duplex or a triplex. Nothing wrong with that. Mm. There's different flavors of real estate all over the place. But that gave me the confidence to be able to say, okay, I could do 16 units. And then I started thinking about the scale and how, since I'm looking at value-add properties, if as I start to renovate these, if I need to buy 16 of something or 32 of something, well, I could see how the scale would benefit me.
Yeah, the whole process took a while. I'm not sure if I remember correctly, but I think that was several weeks evaluating that deal, right?
Yeah, a couple weeks, and then we got the offer in, 2 weeks later, something like that?
Yeah. If you're gonna buy a property that's all fixed up and ready to go, then it's gonna be more expensive. Mm. So there's properties out there that have some issues that people need to fix, and that's the value add space that I wanted to be in. I wanted to come in and find a property that needed some fixing up. And so what was unique about this property is that specifically there were multiple income streams that I identified. So as I looked at the 39 units, yeah, that was great. But it also had a laundry room in the bottom, a large laundry room. It also had a huge storage area in the bottom, so I could put storage units there. It had a parking lot where I could have reserved parking. It had garages where I could rent those out, vending machines. So all of these multiple streams is really what attracted me to the building. I have another friend who bought a 24 unit at the same time, and I think it was more, between the 24 unit, it was like 3 or 4 buildings, but that's it. No garages, no storage, none of that. And so we are doing he and I are doing different things. And I just love all of the value that I've been able to extract out of each of these different areas.
Yeah. So you look at it as a business almost?
Absolutely.
More than just a piece of real estate?
Yeah.
So I remember you discovered quite a few issues. Can you share a little bit what some of those were? I remember some of those stories.
Yeah. Well, I feel like there's a lot of deferred maintenance right off the bat. A lot of leaky faucets and things that weren't being fixed very promptly. So as we came in, some of that stuff was easier to fix, but it could just use a lot of TLC everywhere. There were a lot of boarded up windows, and the garages were already boarded up. So I could see past all that, and I could see the value that I wanted to bring. But maybe other people just drive by and say, "Ooh, this is a pretty rundown place."
Yeah.
But in the year and a half, I've been able to redo all the garages and redo the storage units and do all of these things that have brought a lot of value to the tenants now. And they were people that maybe didn't want to live in the building and they hated. They're like, I hate living in this place. And now I get tenants that are like, I got a thumbs up in the camera the other day. I put in new flooring in one of the entryway. And one of the tenants, he goes, "Oh, love the floor."
Oh, that's awesome.
And I thought that was so cool. You don't get to hear it from that all the time.
Yeah, that's cool.
I mean, after all, you're providing a home for people,
Yeah.
and that feels good if they're happy with what you're providing.
It's always been my mission to just provide good housing to people. Provide something to them that I would want. If I love love where you live is my slogan for the building. So I want people to love where they live. They like their laundry facility. Everything works in the laundry facility. They want to invite their friends there to move in and create a community. So those are some of the things that I've been working on since I've taken over.
Yeah. I want to point out that, in my opinion, you were pretty bold for a first project in Milwaukee, because if I recall correctly, there were a few issues that went well beyond just a leaky faucet.
Yeah.
I think you had some structural issues. I think you were dealing with the heating system.
Fire damage too, right?
Yeah, that's
Fire
right.
damage. Yeah. So those are things that usually send buyers for the hills.
True.
How did you feel about these things, and how did you deal with that?
Yeah, great question. So I took some of those one by one. With the fire unit, I looked at that. So there was one unit in the building that had just experienced a fire, so they boarded it up. And so I looked at that as I got to unlock that revenue right away. That's like a product on the shelf that's just not moving.
Not used.
So yeah, and so that was the number one thing that I wanted to fix right away, because it was also one of the bigger. I knew that if I didn't address it right away, eventually, if I spent money here and spent money there, you would never get around to doing that.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to maximize my potential in the building. And so I tackled the fire unit. And so luckily I had a good property management company that worked with me, that had managed the building previous to me, and that so I kept them on during the time.
Yeah.
And so it was a very smooth transition, and we were able to outsource contractors all of the different projects that needed to happen. And so they came in, they gave me a bid for it, and then we proceeded with the fire unit getting completely remodeled.
Yeah. Can you walk us a little bit through the numbers? How big was the building? Where were rents when you took it over? Where are you now?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a 39-unit building, mostly one bedrooms. There's a 2-bedroom, and there's also 3 studios. So rents were $695. That's what the asking price was when we first started. That's for what they were doing as newly turned units at that time. So with that being the asking price, there were a lot of 650s, 600s. There was a bunch of 585s, and even below that.
That is really low rent.
It was pretty low. Some people were on a fixed income, and so it was super low. I think the building made about $16K in the first month, and at an occupancy rate of definitely sub 70%. It might have been more like 65%, because it seemed like it had more occupancy. But then when I started digging into it a little bit more, and I found out, okay, well, there's the fire unit, but then there's 2 units that are just sitting untouched, because I think they hadn't decided to renovate those yet. And then there were a couple of people that were leaving. So when you add all those together, you end up getting 9, 10, 12 vacant units. And so that really kills your occupancy and your monthly cash flow.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, you had quite a bit of negotiation to do, or Spencer had quite a bit of negotiation to do.
Yeah,
so you guys went in a few rounds, right?
Yeah, we went, we tried it all, and multiple different lenders.
Because I had already been negotiating with them, we did it for 60 days, and then we got another 60 days, I think. And at that point, I said, Spencer, hey, let's just tell them that we're not going to do this because the bank wasn't gonna move forward with the loan. And so I said, I'm not trying to yank anybody's chain, or maybe we should just pack it up.
Yeah.
Unless
they strung you along for a while because initially they said they would do it, right?
Yeah, the different lenders said, oh yeah, we got it. Do they need a letter? A letter, and we'll send over a letter saying you're pre-approved and we're working on things, but those lenders just seem to fall apart.
Mm-hmm. We spent 6 months under contract, something like that.
Yeah, it was
180
about
days, somewhere around there. It was a long time.
And at the end, I said, hey, let's just tell them, unless we can do something like a master lease or seller financing. And Spencer was like, well, what terms? And so we put together some terms, we sent them over, and we negotiated there. And I said basically, hey, same thing I was trying to do with the bank here. Thanks for allowing me to be on this journey for 6 months. I'm sure it's frustrating for you as it is for me. And so I said, let's just do the same bank terms, and we closed the deal.
Mm. You said you did a lot of renovations in the last few months on the units. Can you share a little bit what you did specifically and how you bring more value to the tenants?
Yeah, absolutely. It was my goal from the beginning to focus on the common area improvements because that affects all the tenants instead of just that one tenant. You know? I don't think that I was able to enact that strategy right away because I got kind of mired down with all of those vacant units at once, and I had to come up with a plan to start working on all these vacant units. And so since then, we've probably renovated about 70% of the building.
Wow.
We've done 20, almost 30 units so far. We've put in, and there have been slight variations in how we've done those. Some had carpeting, and then I didn't like the carpet, and I found out that the carpeting was just not being taken care of during each of the turns, and so we ended up going with LVP. So after doing all these renovations in the units, recently I've been able to enact a couple of other strategies, like obviously it's easier to keep your tenants than forcing, like raising the rent, forcing them out and having you to go find new tenants. So I put together a lease incentive package where, hey, if you want to sign a new lease, I'm raising the rent, but I'm not raising it as much. And so then it was a very attractive strategy for the tenants that they could either get a new stove, they could get new blinds, or they could get all new fixtures, light fixtures. And so they got to pick, but then they also stayed in the building. So earlier in the year, I think I had 19 or 20 that were turning over during the summer.
Oh, that's
obviously
a lot.
it's half the building.
Yeah.
And so I said, how am I going to fight that? And I came up with a lease incentive. And the reason the lease incentive was so critical is because I thought to myself, well, just to rent out the unit, the lease fee is $400 that I have to pay back to the property management company. But then there's the several weeks or a month that it's going to take to be down, and then there's the finding a new tenant, and then there's all the costs for the flooring and the repairs. So it ended up costing me about $3,000 or so. Whereas if I could just offer a lease incentive, hey, I'll give you a free stove. Sure, $400, okay.
Yeah.
And so I'm giving them a stove that I would have had to replace the stove anyway.
Yeah.
So, and now after those 20 lease renewals, I think we have like 2 left. We got through them all.
Nice.
Yeah.
Everybody renewed.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I always try to tell people is pay really attention to your turnover rate because turning over units and vacancies is your single biggest expense. So if you get a good grip on turnover, if you get a good grip on vacancy, that's half the battle right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you see in the rental market happening in Milwaukee?
So I see that I'm watching other properties nearby, and I see that rates keep going up. Expenses have been getting out of control these days. I know insurance is going up. So, rates from the building, I was getting $695. And so when I started out this project, I didn't want to just raise the rent just to raise the rent. I'm trying to provide a significant value to the residents so that they love where they live. So, but I did increase the rent accordingly to bring it to market, because it couldn't be lagging back in the 500s and 600s. You just can't do that and maintain the building the way it needs to be maintained. So, so rents have gone up. And they've gone from up to about $825 to $850 to $875 or so. So that's my market rate right now, $875, and that's what we're renting these for. So things have been doing great. That's brought the revenue from 16, now it's at 32. So we've doubled the revenue. That's helped with the garages that we rent out and the parking, reserved parking that we offer.
Right.
So we've gotten the building to a great point now where we're not so much focusing on renovating the units, and we're back to doing some of the common area improvements, which are really fun. That's what I like to do, where everybody can see them.
And I know you were very busy with getting everything up and running. Are you tracking net operating income at this point?
Yeah. So the most important lesson I learned, I think, is that you got to make sure you're doing your books the right way so that they look good to a bank. I mean, they got to make sense, and they've got to, somebody that doesn't know your property as intimately has to be able to look at it and say, okay, net operating income, you got your cash flow, you got your rents coming in, and understand that. So that's been a big benefit. I've been trying to just stabilize the numbers. One of the things that helped me stabilize is some costs were quarterly. And I found personally, it's fine if you want to do it quarterly, but I found personally that helping to stabilize the numbers, if I could make those monthly payments instead.
Makes it easier to manage.
Exactly. Like I called City of Milwaukee in terms of my water bill, and I said, hey, we're a commercial property. Can't we get monthly billing? And they said, sorry, we can't do that. But the lady that then said on the phone, she's like, but if you want, you could just make a payment whenever you want. You can make a payment every month. And so that's what I do. I split up the month for how much water my bill is, and then I don't get a giant water bill. Because one thing that I didn't understand as a newbie when I first took over the property, why does the property make all this money this month and then it's super low this month? And I didn't understand that.
Yeah, all of a sudden you get wiped out.
Yeah, and now why do you owe so much this month, but last month was so great? And unfortunately, that's probably what the banks see too, is the banks have to try to interpret what's going on with your property. So if you can do a good job of packaging it right so that all the numbers make sense and you've evened out the expenses, I think you really help yourself.
Yeah. If you would go back to the beginning of this story, what would you tell yourself, this is something that I've learned, I should be doing this differently, if you were to start over again?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think working with the property management company has been awesome. They provided a lot of structure that helped me, everybody from the leasing team to the renovations team to the maintenance team to the collections team, and they had somebody that talked to utilities. And so as a one-man show, that's not something that I had when I started out. As I've evolved and we've done a lot of renovations, I do see some areas of improvement in terms of cost savings when it comes to trying to find contractors and hiring those out appropriately. So I did bring on, instead of having to go hire contractors every time and dealing with that, I did hire my own employees. So looking back, I think making that first hire, boy, it's almost a little scary. I mean, you're taking somebody's life and providing, for their family, and you're taking that on your shoulders. So I had to be really careful to make sure, okay, can I continue this? Am I going to be able to do this? But as I look back at the numbers, it just became clearly evident that I needed to hire my own employees and bring them in-house to be able to continue doing these renovations. And that really upped my quality, my turn time, and the responsiveness around the building, because I talk to my team throughout the day all the time, and if there's now, like for example, I was at the building yesterday and I was talking to my head of maintenance, and he gets an email. He's like, oh, okay, oh, leaky faucet, okay, hey, I'll be right back. And he's able to do those things right away. And so what we've done to the building is take it from where people didn't like to live there because the stuff never got fixed to we can fix this stuff in 24 hours.
That's amazing.
Same day.
Yeah. Yeah, that goes a long way with the tenants.
Yeah.
So from what I understand, the two of you are property hunting again?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's back at it again.
So I think
Trial by fire, right?
absolutely. Things went so well the first time that I was like, Spencer, it's time to do it again. I want to find, I love Milwaukee. I'm from Chicago, and so I want to find another property nearby so that my team's not driving all over the place. So something close by, and I want to do it again.
Yeah. So you are an out-of-state investor. What are some of the things that you rely on Spencer to help you with in that process?
Yeah, so Spencer really helped me to stay grounded in the areas. I remember having a funny conversation with you about, hey, I got this idea, what about this area over here? And you're like, oh, that area is not the best area. So he helped me really understand what it's like to, the layout of the city. And then the updates that you provide, the Milwaukee updates, that's awesome. So being an out-of-state investor, not having my own team, I've got to form my team on the ground. And so my team was reaching out to you guys and having you on the ground and knowing, and then at that point I just had to make smart decisions based on your guidance that you were giving me.
Sure.
So having you guys give me the guidance was really awesome.
Has your perception changed of Milwaukee since you've invested here?
No, in fact, well, yeah, I say yes, actually. Yes, it's changed a lot. In fact, that I want to continue investing here. It's been such a great experience that I want to double down and continue to grow my company here. Whereas before, I was looking in other areas, I was looking in other states, and I was looking closely here because of my ties to Chicago. But now that I've had such a good experience, I've decided that this is the trajectory where my company is going to go, and we'll continue to build operations and move forward.
Yeah. How did Milwaukee look like compared to other cities or states you looked at?
Yeah, I actually did a very thorough analysis. I put together an Excel spreadsheet, and I looked at all the states that I was interested in, and then different areas. And I looked at a number of things based on property tax rate. So I was looking at Texas and Florida and California, and of course, since I'm from California, I did not want to invest in California for a variety of reasons. One of the reasons was I wanted to make sure it was a landlord-friendly state.
Yeah.
And California is known to not be a landlord-friendly state. And so knowing that if there were many evictions at the time, or that I was going to have many evictions, I don't want to be evicting people, number one. I certainly don't want to be doing that. But sometimes if somebody doesn't pay their rent for a month or for 2 months or for 3 months, at some point you got to pull the trigger and say, well, I'm sorry. As much as I want to help you, it's time to go.
Yeah, you're not a free housing provider.
Exactly. So I wanted to go to a state that would help me as a landlord when I pursued that. If I had a problem, that they wouldn't fight me in court or something, and I'd be able to execute an eviction or get some assistance if I needed as a landlord.
Yeah.
So that was some of the metrics. So landlord-friendly state, property taxes, insurance rates, and so I made a big Excel spreadsheet with all these states on it, and I did a color graph that was green to orange to yellow, to red, and so that's helped me. What helped me determine where to go.
Yeah, you're both investors. Spencer has a portfolio as well, so both of you had to go through a few evictions, I believe. How was your experience with that?
Not fun. Not fun. Like James said, you don't want to have to kick somebody out, but if they're not paying rent or causing problems that are affecting them from the business operation standpoint, then decisions need to be made. You're gonna have to go through the process. But from what it's like in California, or at least from what I've heard, it's nothing like that here. Somebody could be out 2 months, 3 months at the most. Fairly clean, easy process compared to like in New York, California, Illinois, some of these other states have just more and more problems.
Did you hire an attorney or did you do it yourself?
Attorney. Yep.
Okay.
So you can do it yourself, but it's just cleaner, clear cut going through an attorney.
Yeah, it makes sense. Well, thank you very much for taking the time today and swinging by and sharing your experience with us here. And we look forward to working with you in the future again.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you bet.
All right.